let's talk about what we want to accomplish today and kind of the agenda of how we're going to go about it. So we're going to start off with an overview of what we're calling the new eVP and the timeline of the process and what's happening and how that's all going to work and how it's going to affect you in the Hub and NCSBE offices. And then we're going to provide an overview of what we're calling the public eVP, which is where vendors are going to handle their side of their business, including kicking off certification requests, and then move on to an overview of the backend eVP, what we're calling the Hub app, which is where you, in this new system, will be managing all aspects of Hub and NCSBE certifications. Then we're going to move on to some demos. So we are going to demo reviewing Hub and NCSBE certifications in this new system, how to be notified of that. We're going to show you how to approve, deny, or withdraw those. We'll move on into appeals, so for Hub and NCSBE certifications. Then we're going to talk about revoking and reinstatement, and then finally recertification before we wrap up and kind of talk about what is next. So hopefully that all makes sense in things that you were looking for as far as information before we go live with this new system on July 10th. And so I'm going to move forward and we are going to talk about what the new eVP is. So this is a slide here, kind of shows who's involved and some of the characteristics of this upgrade. But at the most basic level, it is a merging of the current versions of the IPS and NC bid system, which is on the buyer side, with the electronic vendor portal or eVP. So making sure everyone understands the basics of both. IPS, or the interactive purchasing system as it's currently known, is where state procurement users post and manage their formal solicitations. And eVP is where vendors register their companies to do business with the state of North Carolina. Also important for you regarding eVP, and that's where vendors, and that's where it's currently happening as well, and will continue to happen. That's where vendors are going to request their certifications for Hub or NCSBE status. So with the merging into one new supersized eVP, these two sides are coming closer together. Your brand new side, the Hub app, and their upgraded side, the public eVP, so many aspects of this state and vendor relationship are going to improve. And most impactful for you, obviously, is the certification process. So now, the new eVP, it is just some technical stuff. It is going to be built into the Microsoft Cloud. And so when you get into cloud, everything becomes more agile, and it's going to provide various points of new value to the state's vendors, the purchasers, and administrators like you. So we see here we've got your logos, eVP, IPS, and a couple little notes on how things are going to be going forward. Want to show you.
I can't do nothing on my thing.
We have talked about it. If someone is having some, I guess they can't hear me now, but you might want to just log out and try to join back in. And we are recording this, so you will be able to get anything you missed, you'll be able to see in the future. All right, now this is an overview of those two sides of this kind of supersized eVP. So we will start on the left side here, and this is what we're calling the public eVP, primarily vendors, right? And you can see here, they not only can continue to register their companies, deal with their solicitation responses, but also their Hub and NCSBE certification and reporting. And there's also literally a public aspect to this that you don't need to be actually logged into the system, and you can do vendor searches, and doing those vendor searches, you can see who's registered. I'm going to show you that in a bit, but this is kind of the vendor side of things, and it already exists, but it's kind of getting improved and enhanced there. And then what is going to happen on the other side, the right side, is this back end, and for you, this will be what we call the Hub app. You'll also see state procurement users are going to have access to this to manage their solicitations. DOAs users are going to have access to this for their administrative duties, but we're here to talk about your hub administrative duties. So you'll get special dashboards, you'll be able to do reporting, and you will be able to manage your certifications in this system very close to the vendor system. And because now these are linked, vendors even get a little bit of access to the timeline and how things are going, so they get closer into the process that you're doing, which I think is a really nice thing for all involved. So one more slide here about just the overall process and everything. It's going to relate to the timing. So we're not going to go too deep into this because a lot of what you see here is timing on the solicitation aspect, because IPS and the new eVP, a big portion of that is managing on both sides solicitations, public solicitations. And so there will be, the big date here is July 10th, 7/10. That's the go live of the new season of the new system. And so, but leading up to that, there's going to be a slight pause on new solicitations that are posted. And then kind of before and after that, there will be a slight pause on bid openings. This is all being explained and handled to both the vendor side and the buyer side as well. But just so you know, there is a bit of a transition. But once we hit the middle of July, the state should be running business as usual after that. Now, I do believe this also impacts kind of hub certification requests and updates. I believe there's going to be a kind of a parallel pausing from June 30th to July 10th here, where there's going to kind of be no new hub certification progress in a certain extent. I'm sure you guys will be made more aware of that by leadership, but there is an impact a little bit on you guys too. So that is the transition and the timing, and coming up on June 30th, which isn't that far away, and then we are less than a month away from the actual go live. So that is that. Before we get into the actual kind of showing you around these new systems, Lauren, I've been seeing the chat, and not a lot of questions here, but is there anything that we want to pause for to ask any questions or address anything?
No, I don't think so. Just a question about reporting, which we handled.
Okay, great. And again, folks, don't hesitate. If something comes up at all, put that in the chat, and we will get on that, either answer in the chat or when we have our pauses here. So, great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you in and give you the first look at what the public side of eVP will look like, show you around there, and then I'm going to actually show you kind of the beginning process for a vendor that will be registered in this new system to kind of kick off a hub certification request. And then Zach is going to take over the screen, and he's going to show you the back end or the hub app, give you a tour around that, and then get into these demos. All right, now you have your new certification request in the new system, how that's going to work. So to get from here, we're in the PowerPoint. I'm going to transition out, move over into the web, and show you what we got. So escape out of here. We pull this up, and the first thing that I want to show you here before we get into the new system is our existing website. And this is just important. Make sure everyone is aware of this. Going forward, if you haven't been, eprocurement.nc.gov. That is what we call our portal at eProcurement. It's got a lot of helpful information for you. Now, we're probably going to be supporting you a lot more than we have in the past in the procurement system now that everything is coming together. It's not up yet, but if you went to this training drop-down up at the top, there will be training for you as far as managing the hub process in NCSBE in the new system. And as well, going forward, and this is a great thing, we've got a help desk. So if you click on the contact side, going forward, we will be updating this too for getting there as a hub user, but from 7:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, we've got folks at our help desk answering calls, fielding emails, and helping you through situations that if you're getting stuck and it's one of your first times doing a new one and you need help outside of your great coworkers, call the help desk and we can help walk you through that. So just a little bit of information to make sure you are aware of what the procurement office provides as support for all parts of the state going forward. Scrolling down, you'll see here, we don't have links to what I'm about to show you yet, but we're going to have various tiles to get into your back-end apps and to show you the public vendor search that I'm about to show you. And for vendors, when they log in and they go to start a hub application, we've got links based off of this site to do that. So they're obviously not live yet. Wait till July 10th, but just making sure you are aware that eprocurement.nc.gov is going to be an important resource to you going forward. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I have a tab open here. I'm going to click over, and this is what this public side of the eVP app is going to look like in the portal. Again, eVP stands for the Electronic Vendor Portal. And I'm on the public side here. You can see sign in. So vendors, when they register, they will be able to sign in and access, special information about their own account. I am not signed in, so it's just showing you what anybody can see here, including you if you'd like to come over ever and look something up on the public side. So a couple things that anybody can see here. You've got, obviously, when you go to register, sign in or register here, and you can kick off a hub or NCSBE registration here. So that is going to be one of the first things that folks see when they log in. If you want to look at public solicitations that are posted, or if vendors that are registered want to look at those so they can respond, you can click on this solicitations link up at the top. So you've got 3 of these links up at the top that are going to be helpful here. So solicitations. And you can see here now you've got a listing of that. We're not going to go too deep into this. This is just to let you know what is available here. But we've got a listing of solicitations, dating all the way back to the opening date. And this is in a test environment now. But you can come and look and say, hey, what are the open solicitations? That means ones that we can bid on. And as you scroll down, then you've got open solicitations here. And the opening date is essentially when the bids close, and vendors, here we're in the test environment. So what you see here is a lot of test stuff. But if a vendor is interested in responding to that, they would click on the document number, see more information, see the attachments. There will be portions down the line where if any addenda are posted and the bid tabulations eventually, and this one hasn't even got to the point where you can do that, the awards, all this information is going to live here, and as a vendor that would be signed in, they can click either intends to participate or respond to posting, and then actually respond with their offer for a formal bid response. So that is where the part of this where official bid solicitation postings will be posted for the state and vendors to respond. So that is on the solicitations thing, obviously. You can also see, and this would be the part here, the contract extensions. This is something that contract extensions, if anything, needs to be announced where an official contract doesn't get reposted for bidding. It's just extended. The state PNC requires that those be posted. You will be able to find those here, and they will be listed for 90 days, just as they are now. So the stuff that is currently in IPS is going to transition over to here. The last thing I want to show you about the public side here is the vendor search. So I'm going to go back home, and you can click on this from everywhere, but I can also click on Browse Solicitations and Vendors, just like I can up here, down there. But I'm going to click on Vendors, and I just want to show you that there is a public search aspect to this. Now, within your Hub app, and Zach is going to give you a little insight into this in a bit, there's actually a vendor search within there. So you never even need to leave your app if you want to look up various information about vendors. And there's actually, it's just organized in a different way, but you see the same vendors over in the Hub app. But this is if you wanted to come out to the public vendor search, or if just anyone who's interested in the vendor pool for the state of North Carolina, this is available to the public. So you'll see up at the top, you've got a vendor search with 6 basic fields, including hub certification status and NCSBE certification status. So these are 2 of the most important 6 that you'll see here. And then there's an advanced search, which you can click this button here and you'll see more fields such as, are they registered in e-procurement? Some more specific hub and NCSBE categories right there. And then getting down into commodity codes, contractor stuff, and all that. So there is a kind of a deeper search if you'd like. So let me just demonstrate a quick search for you and then how those results are displayed to the public. So let's say hub certification status. We want to say we're looking for a vendor that is certified, a hub certified vendor. We want to find a vendor. This is the e-procurement registration status. They're active. They are currently active. They have all their terms of use signed. They can accept a purchase order right now. And then let's find one down here that has also indicated in their registration status that they are a small business. So we have 3 things we're not putting in. Obviously, most people are going to look up things by vendor name, but we're just going across all of the data here. And so I'm going to scroll down. I just got 3 different filters there. Some of them are related to that, and I'm going to click on search. And we will see the results and then how this will come out. So there's in our test system right now, we've got, it looks like 3375 vendors that match up active in e-procurement, certified in hub, and small business is true. So there's other things. Some of these also, they will be certified as NCSBE, but we didn't put that in the filter, but it will show up here. There's also disabled work and nonprofit work center to come up. In the real system, we'd have contact information, but we are in, and you'll see here, 123 Main Street. So this is our test environment, but you can see all of this information here. However you set your parameters, you get the information back. And then to see specific information about any of these vendors, you can click on this, go into the details here, and you can see here that you've got, I click on things here. Here's a hub vendor, hub certification, and this is important information for that. So this is what is available to the public. You will have access to see it on the other side where you can kind of help put this out there. But that is just a brief look at the public vendor search. And I'm going to do something real quick. So this is when I'm not signed in. I've got another browser open up where I am signed in as a vendor that is in the process set. So I'm going to open this up here. And you'll see here I am signed in as Johnny Vendor. I have NC Basic Vendor. So this is what it looks like. And now I can go in and I can update my profile. So I'm not going to change my vendor's name. But this is a vendor that registered, did not apply for hub status. But maybe there's a change in ownership and they're ready to do that. So I can come down to the certifications process, and most vendors will register for their hub or NCSBE status from the start. But you also can say, hey, something's changed. I want to update my status, or I didn't know about this when I first registered. And they could click apply for hub certification. They would start the process to where they're putting in their contacts, they're talking about their reciprocity, then they'd move over and note the owners and then sign their terms of use, do all the documentation that they need to provide to you. This would come over to you in the system. Zach's going to show you what that looks like, but just wanted to show you that vendors on their side, they're kicking these things off in this new eVP super portal on the public side, and that is that. So I'm about to switch it over so Zach can show you from your side of things, the hub admin side. But Lauren, I know that we've got a couple hands up. I see that there's some chats in there. Did we want to address anything before we move on?
Sure. I guess first let's ask, I guess, John, you have a question so we can.
Yeah, you might be able to answer it because it was about, how does it look from the public side to the back end?
That is exactly what, when we transition to the next thing, Zach is going to take over the screen and he is going to show you all of that on the back end. All right. That's that, and I,
This is David. I have a quick question. Is what Zach's going to show us, is it different than what for those of us who did some of the testing last week and got the walkthrough from Zach, is this different than what he's showed us then?
very similar. There may be a couple little things here or there, but it's essentially, it's the same system, yes. So the examples might be slightly different, but the same.
Gotcha.
System,
Thank you.
All right. With that, Zach, I think might be a good time to just transition. So, Zach, thank you very much for taking us home today, and thanks for all of your questions and attention so far.
Good morning, everybody. So as Jeff said, I'm going to kind of start with giving you guys a overview of the back end or the hub app for the new eVP system. So I have shared my screen, and you should see the hub app displayed currently. So to log into the hub app, you would log in using your state email and password. And then after logging in, you should see a screen very similar to this. Once we go live, your screen will probably have, or it should have like the same setup here. Just the data will probably look a little bit different, a little bit more realistic, just because we have pure test data in here right now. So I want to start with showing you guys kind of how the vendor search looks from the back-end app, as Jeff showed you kind of the public side of that. So from our left-hand side on our navigation panel in the vendor management section, if we click on vendors, you'll notice it pops up with active vendors. And then we have a filter by keywords search box right here. So if you click on this search box, it can actually show you all the different filters you can use to search utilizing just this box. So just to keep it simple, I'm just going to search for something with my name in it. I know there are several test accounts that I've created. And then once my search results populate, I can actually view information about a specific vendor by clicking on the vendor name. And then you'll notice I have a bunch of tabs up here at the top of my screen. So I can click through these tabs and I can see the information about this specific vendor. And then just a couple of other really nifty features. If you'll notice up here in the top left-hand corner of your navigation panel, you'll notice this recent option. So this will show you the last 10 or so records that you viewed. And you actually have the option of clicking this little pin icon to pin a record. And if you do that, it'll show up in your pinned records. So if there's a couple records that you know you're just going to be going back and forth between, for a good while, it might be a good idea to kind of pin them here so that you can easily access them. Now that we've kind of covered some of the vendor features and a couple of the cool little features I think will make your guys' life a little bit more easier and whatnot, let's actually start reviewing a hub and an NCSBE certification.
Hey,
again,
Zach, before you go on, so I was expecting that we would see like a search. It looks like there is not a search in the back end that looks like what we saw on the public side.
So what you could do is you could hit this edit filters option right here, and then you can actually add different filters, which a lot of them should align to the filters that you were seeing on the public side. Actually, there's probably a lot more over here in the back end. It's more of like a customizable feature though. But for quick searches, like if you're looking for a specific vendor, it's probably easier just to use this little search bar up top here. But
okay, so if we're looking for vendors to use, not vendors to manage certification of, we want to use the public side.
Well, no, so you could still use this backend. So like if you said, hey, I want to see, hub certification like vendors that are hub certified, who also, have an address that's in, say, Raleigh, then you can kind of start adding different filters to this search and then hit this apply button down here to find them. So, I mean, it becomes a personal preference thing. And again, we just have test data in here. So what I'm looking for, I'm not sure if there's actually a vendor currently in here that matches this criteria, but you can continue to add various criteria. So it becomes more of a personal preference thing. If you would rather kind of search using the layout on the public vendor search, then you can definitely do so. However, these filters are available for you guys to kind of add and edit and play around with for searching in the back end as well.
And are these available for anybody who has back end access or just the hub team?
So most users should have these various filters. I'm actually not aware of anybody that wouldn't, but that's not to say that there might be a small subsection of users that doesn't actually have these filters. If they have access to, one of the apps, I believe they should.
Okay.
But does that kind of answer your question?
It does. I thought they would all be the same, but they're not. Both inside and outside.
So, I mean, I haven't actually looked through to compare them exactly, but I think you have everything from the public side. You just have kind of more on the back end.
Yeah, I just thought we were going to one single search rather than two different types of searches, so that there wouldn't be confusion about which one to use. It should give you the same data.
John, the one that Jeff displayed is for anyone outside of state employees to use. So vendors, everybody can use that one. This one is internal to folks who have access to the system.
I understand, and that's been one of the issues that we've faced in the current system, because we've got eVP and we've got IPS and we've got internal IPS and we've got the hub search. So I was just, we're going from 5 to 2, but
it's pulling from the same database, which today is not with IPS and eVP. So at least the data that it will search from is the same across public search and the search that Zach is displaying here.
Awesome. So are we ready to kind of keep moving on? Perfect. So now we'll actually pull up a hub certification and take kind of a look at it. So again, from our navigation panel on the left-hand side in the hub management section, if we click on hub certifications, it'll pull up our active certifications. And then for this specific one, I know the specific hub record I'm looking for, so I'm going to just paste that over here. If you did happen to see it in this list that kind of pulls up, you could also just click on it right there. But I'm going to hit enter just to complete my search, since I already I'd paste my number in here, and then I can click on the name to pull this specific hub certification record up. So you'll notice that we have this business process flow right here that kind of dictates, or that shows us exactly what stage this specific certification record is in. Then we have some tabs down here that show some information about this application itself. There's actually a link right here that will take you to the vendor record. So if I click on this, it'll actually take us to the vendor record for the company that is applying for this hub certification. Also, if this vendor is trying to get NCSBE certification, there's a link down here that will connect to that NCSBE record as well. If you click on the owners tab, it will give you information about the ownership of this specific firm. Documents tab will give you information about the documents that they submitted. You can actually see anything that they've submitted by clicking on the document name, looking in the timeline, and then you can actually click on the document to download a copy of it. If a vendor, accidentally uploads an incorrect or maybe incomplete document, you actually can delete the document by using this little trash can button and then hitting OK. And then you can update it from received to not received, which right now, I guess my permissions aren't set up for that. But once you do that, it should update to not received. And then there's also this applications tab, which will show you all the information that the vendor kind of filled out in their hub certification application. And then finally, there is our systems logs and our audit history tabs, which will just kind of provide you some information about the history of this specific record. So next, let's go ahead and view a NCSBE certification. So again, from our navigation panel on the left-hand side in the hub management section, if we click on NCSBE certifications, I'm going to just copy and paste my NCSBE record name into my search bar and click enter. But again, if you saw it right here, which actually is right here, I can just click on it from here. And again, similar to the hub record, we have a business process flow up here on the top of the screen that shows us which stage this record's in. We have a link to the specific vendor that is applying for this NCSBE record. There's also a link to the specific hub certification if this vendor is also applying for hub. Then we have an owners tab, which shows us, the breakdown of the owners and various data about them. The documents tab, which shows us, the documents, which again, we can click on. And we can actually click on the document in the timeline to download a copy of the document. Then we have an applications tab, which shows us kind of the other information that the vendor supplied while applying for NCSPE. Then we have a systems logs, and then we also have an audit history that you can access by hitting related and clicking on audit history. That just kind of shows us some of the history of this record itself. Perfect. So now that we've kind of just done a basic overview of what the hub and NCSP records, or hub and NCSP certification records look like, we'll now actually go through the process of approving, denying, and withdrawing them. So I'm going to start with a hub record. So again, from the navigation panel, I'm going to click on hub certification. And I'm going to grab my hub certification number, paste in my search box, hit enter, click on my on my record number, pull it up. And then normally, we would go through, we would review, make sure that this, record fulfills whatever requirements are necessary for it to move out of this application stage and into the next one. So I'm going to say that it does. So now I'm actually going to come up here to the business process flow, and I'm going to click on the application stage. And then I'm going to change application documents received from no to yes. And then packet completed date, I'm going to list as today. And then for our time, I'm actually going to put 10 o'clock. And I'm going to hit this blue next stage button so we can move this record onto the next stage of the business process flow. So now we're in the under review stage. Again, we could look back look back through our different tabs and look at our vendor account, just to ensure that whatever information that the vendor needs to supply us with has been supplied, and that they meet whatever requirements to kind of move on to the next stage. So is application active? I'm going to leave as yes. Application review, I'm going to update to yes. And I'm going to say the review is completed on today's date. And I'm going to say we completed this one at 10:15 a.m. And I'm the user who is completing this review. So then I'm going to start typing my name in, and then I'm going to select it from the suggestions box that pops up. And then finally, I can hit this blue next stage button to move us on to the next stage of this business process flow. So again, we can go back through and we can look through the applications, the documents, all these different tabs, just to make sure that what we're looking for from this audit stage has been completed. And I'm going to say it has. So for audit complete, I'm going to put that as yes. And then audit completed day, I'm going to put as today. Then I'm going to put the completed time as 10:30. And I'm going to say I'm the user who is completing the audit. So again, I'm going to start typing my name, find it from the suggestions, and then click this blue next stage button to kind of move us along to our approve application stage. So this approve application stage is just asking us if we are going to approve or deny this application. So it's going to give us a question of certification approved. And then depending on how we answer this question, a new stage will pop up. So since we're going to put yes for here, you'll notice that in our business process flow that we now have an approved stage at the end of our current business process flow. And then once I hit next stage, it's going to ask us to enter in the certification start date for this specific hub certification record, which I'm going to put as today. Then hit this blue finish button. And then now that I've hit that blue finish button, I'm going to go ahead and hit this refresh button from this, what we call command bar up top here that has all these various options. When I do that, you'll notice that the status reason for this record updates to approved current term active. And then if I hit the refresh button one more time, you'll notice that in our timeline over here that we have this hub certification approval letter, which we can then click on to download a copy of and open it up. And we'll actually see a copy of the letter that is sent out to the vendor, updated with their vendor information. I don't think we currently have the updated template, but once you guys get that to us, we can, get this updated for go live. So note that some of the signatures and names maybe up here in the top right-hand corner might be slightly off, but that is something, that we're aware of and sounds like a pretty easy update from us once we do get that updated template. Then if we go back to our application, which it's like I lost it, so let me just go ahead and get logged back in.
Zach, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So when you are receiving or not receiving the documents, if you mistakenly receive something, and can you go back and unreceive it?
Yeah, you can. So let's just pull up a different one here. But if you're on this documents tab, and let's just say we'll click on this one, and let's say you just accidentally put the status to received and then hit save and close. You can come back to, I believe it was the copied of signed leases right here. You can come back in and just click as not received and then hit save and close again to kind of update that status back to not received.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So let's go through a NCSPE approval now. So very similar to our hub certifications, we'll start by getting onto our NCSPE certifications screen. So we'll click on it from our left-hand side here. And then I actually see my record right here. And then we'll kind of go through the same review process, just kind of looking through these various tabs, making sure, we have the relevant information from this vendor to kind of proceed with moving this one out of the application stage. In this case, we actually do have all the vendor has submitted all the documents. So you'll notice the status reason up here is packet complete. And then if we click on application, you'll notice that application documents received defaults to yes. So if all the documents have a status reason of received, then the application documents received will default to yes instead of no. However, we realize that there are some times where maybe not all the documents are necessary to kind of move forward. So therefore, it is a manual field that you can update to yes if it is a situation like our previous hub certification record where, we hadn't received everything, but we had received enough to kind of move it forward. And next, I'm just going to add the packet completed date, and we'll say it was completed, this morning at 8 a.m. Then we'll hit this blue next stage button. Now we're in the under review stage. So again, we could go back through and review our various tabs to make sure whatever information we need for the stage, has been received and it meets the qualifications for moving forward. In this case, we're going to put yes as application review completed. Then review completed date, we're going to list as today. And then completed by, I'm going to say I'm the user who completed this. So again, going to find myself and add myself as the review completed by. And then we're going to hit this blue next stage button. Now we're in the audit stage. So for audit complete, we're going to put yes, audit complete date, we'll put as today. And then instead of 8 a.m. though, we'll say we completed the audit at 9. And then again, I'm just going to, since I'm the one looking at it and I'm the one reviewing it and completing the audit, I'm going to say audit completed by, I'm going to start typing my name, list my name there, and hit the blue next stage button. So we're in the approve application stage. So we're going to be asked our certification approved question. We're going to put yes because we do want to approve this one. As we set that to yes, you'll notice that we now have a final stage added to our business process flow, which is the approve stage. So we can go ahead and hit this next stage button to kind of move on to that stage. For certification start date, we'll put that as today's date. And if we hit finish, we'll go back up to our command bar, hit refresh, and you'll see our status recent updates to approved to current term active. We'll hit refresh again. So the reason why we're hitting refresh is because there are processes going on in the back end that actually create this letter in our timeline and update this status reason. So by hitting refresh, it's just kind of causing our record to kind of show us where it's at most recently. But if you were to like leave this record and look at another record and go back to it, 5 minutes later, you shouldn't need to actually hit that refresh button. It's just because I'm being a little impatient and we're trying to look at it right now as we're kind of, going through the stage.
Zach, I think Shay has a question.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Hey there. I just want to make sure that I understand. In Shantae's example, a document has come in. Let's say that the document has come in, the team reviews it, they say, hey, this doesn't meet the need. And so they have to reach back out to the firm to say, hey, we need you to, send this in again, the right document. Is there a status? Is there a different status that I can put in the system, or is there a place for a note, or is that something we have to track offline?
So, I mean, you can technically enter notes in on the timeline, but as far as getting the vendor to actually update it, it's probably best to reach out outside the system to them and say, hey, we reviewed your document X and, it doesn't meet the criteria, or, hey, it looks like you uploaded this document twice and you're missing this document. And then they can log into their side of the system and upload the correct documentation.
Okay, but status-wise, I guess we would just leave it, maybe change it back to that the document hasn't been received. Is that
right,
the status that the system is going to show?
So like so I've already moved off this stage, but like if we were still in that application stage and, hadn't already approved this hub record, I could change it from received to not received. And then the status up here would update from packet complete to packet incomplete. Does that answer your question?
Okay. All right. Yeah. So again, I was just trying to understand like the follow-up. If somebody else came in, would they know from the notes or the information within the system, that's kind of where things stand? Or is that information that that the techs still have to track outside of the system? You said that something about a note. Is there a note?
So, I mean, you could technically
in
come
system.
in here and leave a note here,
Okay.
hey, this incorrect document received,
That's
we
it.
emailed the vendor, and then, another technician could come in here and then they could see in the timeline, Shay already reached out to the vendor about this, document.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome. So now that we've approved both a hub and an NCSB certification, we'll kind of go over denying one next. So to deny a hub certification, we'll go ahead and click on the hub certifications tab over here. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste that hub number in this upper right-hand corner. And then pull up the hub record. And this one, we've already actually moved all the way to the approve application stage because these first three stages are the same as if we were approving it. This approve application stage is the one where we will actually deny it. So we'll go ahead and, review it. We'll click through these various tabs, look at the information provided, and we'll, hey, this one, they don't actually meet the criteria for hub. So we'll go ahead and certification approved, we're going to set to no. Then when we do that, instead of getting an approved stage at the very end here, we get a denied stage. So then we can go ahead and hit this blue next stage button. And then it's going to ask us for an actual reason for, hey, why, for the denial. So we're going to say ineligible, which I misspelled. And then it's going to ask us for a denied date. So we're going to set that as today's date. Then hit this blue finish button. And if I go ahead and click back on my general tab and hit refresh. Might have to hit refresh one more time. It was a little quick that time. We'll notice our status reason updates to denied. And we hit refresh one more time, we'll actually see our PDF of the denial letter. And if we click on that, we can actually see our denial letter. And if we scroll down to page 2, you'll notice that the reason that we list as the denial reason is listed there. And then up at the top that the information's been filled out with this vendor's specific information. And then we can kind of come back to our record and we'll look at an NCSB example. So for NCSB, we're going to click on the NCSB certifications on our left-hand side on our navigation panel. And then I'm going to grab the example that was prepared for today, paste it into our search box, hit enter, and then we see Zach's Bookstore pops up right here. And similar to our hub record, we've already moved this one along to the approve application stage because for these first 3 stages, the actions we take in the system are going to be, very similar, actually pretty much the same. And then we'll just kind of click through our various tabs. And we'll say, hey, this vendor doesn't actually meet the criteria for being an NCSBE certification. So for certification approved, we'll say no, and we'll get a denied stage at the end of our business process flow. And then we can hit this blue next stage button. And then again, it's going to ask us for the reason for the denial. So I was going to say the business does not qualify. And then we're going to put a denied date and hit this blue finish button. And if we go back to our general tab and hit refresh.
FYI, that green finish thing that looks like a button doesn't really do anything. It just tells you
it's telling you finished. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And then our status reason has updated to denied. And then if we hit refresh one more time, we can see our hub denial letter. Or I'm sorry, our NCSBE denial letter. And if we click on it, we'll notice that our reason populates there. And then our top of the letter is updated with the vendor's information. Perfect. And then let's go through withdrawing a hub record. So again, we'll click back on hub certifications on the left-hand side of this navigation panel. Grab our hub record number. Pull up the record. And we'll notice that this one's actually been moved on to the under review stage. So we moved it out of the application stage. Now we're in the under review stage. So now if we review this application, we'll notice that, hey, this one actually should be withdrawn. So when we click on under review, instead of leaving is application active as we have in our previous examples, we're going to set that to no. Once we do so, the business process flow updates. So now there's a withdrawal stage. And then application review, we're going to set as yes. Review completed, we're going to set to today's date. And I'm going to say I'm the user who's completing the review. And then if we hit this blue next stage button, it's going to ask us to populate a withdrawal reason. And there are 2 in the system currently. There's vendor request and activity. So once we click one of these reasons, we can hit this blue finish button. Then you'll notice it now says finished, like John was saying, but clicking on this doesn't actually do anything because you've already kind of done what needed to be done to finish the process. And then if we hit the refresh button, the status reason has updated to withdrawn. Then we can hit the refresh button one more time, and we'll notice that we have a hub certification withdrawal letter. Which we might need to hit with refresh one more time because the backend process that is taking place is creating this letter as a Microsoft Word document, and then it converts into a PDF. So you'll notice that I kind of mid-process. So let me go ahead and click refresh one more time. And there we go. Now it's a PDF. So if I click on it, it'll download a copy and pull it up. And then we can see that, hey, this record's been updated with the vendor's information. And now let's go through an NCSPE certification. So again, if we paste our number up here in the top right-hand corner, or if we see it down here in our list, we can click on it there. But since I know the document I'm specifically looking for is NCSPE number, it's usually just a little bit easier and faster just to go ahead and copy and paste it and search for it. So again, we're back on our under review stage. And then if we click through our owners, documents, applications tabs, we can review the information about this specific NCSPE application. And then if we click under review, we can set is application active to no. Once we do that, business process flow updates. And then we're going to want to say application review completed is yes. And then the review was completed this morning. And I'm the user that completed the review. And then if we hit this blue next stage button, we'll move on to our withdrawal phase, or stage. And then again, we have two options for withdrawal reason. So this time I'm going to select inactivity, hit this blue finish button. I'm going to go ahead and refresh our record, and we'll notice that our status reason updates to withdrawn. And if I hit refresh one more time, you'll see that we now have a copy of the withdrawal letter in our timeline. Then if I pull that up, we'll notice that it updates with the vendor's information. And so that was approving, denying, and withdrawing Hub and NCSPE certifications. Were there any questions that we need to cover, Lauren?
No questions in the chat. We can open it up.
Yeah, did anybody have any questions that they wanted to cover before we kind of move on?
I have one, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to jump. So I want to just go ahead and make sure I'm clear on this. The go-live date is July 10th. And when we say go-live date, I think it was in the chat that the data, the actual Hub data will be migrated around that same time. And so am I understanding the go-live is when the Hub staff will be able to go in and have sort of full functionality, that's probably not the same go-live date as we want our Hub vendors in the system, because we would need to learn it first, correct?
The system is going live for everyone, both vendors and buyers, on July 10th.
Right. I guess my question is, the folks on this call are going to have to work with the system, and if the Hub data won't go in until that exact same time, we might have a customer service issue on our side if we haven't had a chance to work with real data in the system. If we're working with real data the same day the public is interacting with it, and maybe we can deal with that offline. I'm not sure about when you say go live. If it's going live for everybody, I would think my team would get access to it before the public and the people they serve get access to it. And I may be missing something, but that just seems like they would need to be. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out. I mean, this training is very helpful. It's great. It looks great. It's just the folks on this call are going to have to deal with real people and real data. And it seems like a timing issue. If the data gets migrated at the same time, they're going to have to start fielding questions from the public, and they've not even learned the system themselves.
Sure. What data are you concerned about when you're asking about data?
I'll let my Hub folks speak, because if they're not concerned, I'm not concerned. But I was thinking they would want to see actual Hub data that they'll be working with.
So I think the biggest concern for us at this point is just trying to understand for the files that are in transition. And we're just not clear on that part yet. I know there's some work that's going on to help us to identify. We know that the firms that are already certified, that information will transition over. And then as a part of our transition plan, we're just already also talking about what our process will be to get our folks up to speed on the front end. So, we can't control the folks that are going to be new, of course, to the system. But for those that are already there, then we'll work through some processes that will help us to get on board on the front end, just like you're saying, before we're having and directing the vendors directly there.
Yeah, and I think, John, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Kristen is working with you all to figure out who those vendors are that are in a transitional state that aren't completely certified.
Yeah, we had to submit a ticket to IPS, to Mike Gasparino, to help us with that. We have no reports that would allow us to get to that level of information.
And I did talk to the secretary yesterday. I think we have a workaround for that. I think we're going to be able, it's not ideal, but I think the data you all would need to handle those in transition from the techie side may not be as easily accessible. So we have a workaround that we think will allow systems to continue working. So disregard my earlier comment. It sounds like the hub folks don't need to see actual data and use the system prior to go live date. I was wrong about that.
I would disagree with that.
Yeah, me too.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, me too.
We're not.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not a way for us to turn it on for part of the folks and not turn it on for everyone. I will just echo what Jeff said earlier, that we, the help desk is here. We're here from 7:30 to 5 Monday through Friday. Please do lean on us if you all need help with navigating through completing your first certification, or you aren't sure what to do. We are here to help. I understand and realize that you guys haven't likely worked with the e-procurement help desk that much, since your process has been kind of separate from the e-procurement system, but we are here to help and happy to help.
So if I can just jump in very quickly, we're going to have to do an assessment of the team to make sure they are positioned and ready for the go live. And we have a meeting scheduled to discuss transition and the whole 9 yards. And David, we'll get back with you because the meeting's already scheduled with managers. But the thing we're going to have to be sensitive to is everyone won't learn visually. So we're going to have to figure out if we're going to need to have a hands-on or what we're going to need, because we don't want folks overwhelmed, the staff that we have, and dealing with vendors being overwhelmed. We have chaos. So after that meeting, we will do touch points to make sure that everybody feels as comfortable as possible as we prepare for the go live date.
And we have written a job aid that is dedicated to Hub Admin that John, and maybe a few other folks have reviewed that we will share in advance of go live, that folks who are more, learn better by reading and seeing screenshots. We do have that available as well.
Right, and that could be the answer, but we'll circle back to make sure that it is.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Tracy's hand is up.
Yes.
So I had a quick question, and it pertains to the job aid. The job aid that you're referencing, is that strictly for our vendors, the hub vendors that are new to the system that will be requesting? Because I understand that, you're transitioning for the vendors that are currently in the system. But for the go live for vendors that may have attended a training prior to this, and they have the old system, the information for the old system or how they request certification, is the job aid geared to them to be able to switch to the new system?
Yeah.
And is this something that we can share with them?
Absolutely. So there are several job aids. There is a job aid for you all that is to help the administration of Hub certification and NCSB certification. And then there are job aids on recertification and on completing the certification process. So and I think you're referencing my comment to Shay for the vendor registration process, we aren't going to train current vendors on how to register because they've already registered. So we are going to convert them, but we will have a job aid for vendors who want to register in the future. We will also have job aids for hub vendors who want to become hub certified in the future. It's just not worthwhile to cover that information in the webinar because these folks have already either have completed those steps and we don't need to talk through that.
And Lauren, just for clarification, the question was around the new firms, because when we do the hub certification training, we're talking to firms that are not yet certified. And so we need to understand the front end of the process because it's a part of what we provide to them.
Yes, so we do have a job aid. I'm not sure as part of the vendor registration video is still in the works. So I'm not sure if that I would imagine that will also include hub certification, that process. But I know for sure we do have a job aid around completing a hub certification from the vendor's perspective.
And do you have that currently, or is that in the works?
It is going through the review process. I can't remember, John, if that's been reviewed by you yet.
I'm sorry, can you say which specific one? I know there's like a hub one, an NCSBE one, and an overall one that's like 27 pages long.
I think the certification...
We've provided feedback on the certification ones for the hub and the NCSBE.
So those have to be submitted for final approval at the end of this week, and then we'll hopefully have those ready to share publicly likely the following week and maybe into the next week.
Yeah, I think we provided our feedback last Friday.
Okay.
We did, and again, a clarification on the EVP registration one, of course, we can only provide feedback on some of the verbiage because we don't own the process. So, that's kind of the scope of our feedback on it.
Right. Yeah, that's what we were looking for, to make sure that we were speaking in the same language that the folks that you deal with are familiar with. Shantae, do you have a question?
I think they answered it in the chat. But thank you. But quick question, yes, I do. What happens when we have a vendor who has half of their documents in the old system, and then do they do the new system when the new system comes up? Are they implementing their new documents in the new system or the old system?
Shantae, I can take that one. That's the thing John and others are trying to figure out. The initial plan was if they had submitted one document, we would go ahead and try to migrate them over. We don't have an easy ability to determine that. What the non-perfect but probable fix is going to be is that to free the IT folks up so they don't have to worry about that, is we will probably do some sort of provisional certification for folks so nobody is delayed because of our process, and then give them maybe a 6-month window to go in through the new system to complete the certification. Because the problem we have now is when they submit those documents and things, they're going to have to be stored separately in a SharePoint system that's not developed yet. And so rather than pausing the hub certification process, we're probably going to have to do some sort of provisional certification so they can continue on and then have them go back in through the new system. Again, that's not final. It's just right now the transition piece, there's no path forward that seems to be workable at this point. We may get there, but in order to not hold up the tech folks, we may just say we're going to provisionally certify folks on our side and then give them a check back point where they'll be certified for a period of time, and it's on the vendor to then come back and resubmit those documents in the new system.
Thanks, David.
Not perfect, but I think that's the best we're going to be able to do for now, to not hold up anything and serve our clients.
All righty. Were there any other questions? I feel like we had a lot of good ones during that stoppage. Alrighty, well then we'll continue on. So next we're going to go over appealing hub and NCSPE certifications. So I'm going to start with a hub certification. So to appeal a hub certification, I'm actually going to pull up the certification that we denied. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change my view from active hub certifications to all hub certifications. Then I'm going to search for my certification. And then we'll notice as I pull it up that this is the one that I just denied, and it's still in a denied status, and we can still see the letter sitting in our timeline. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit this activate button. And then when this pop-up menu pops up, I'm going to actually change the status from pending to approved current term. Or actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to change this to appealed. And then I'm going to hit activate. And then again, from our command bar, I'm going to come up here to the process option. And then I'm going to hit this reactivate button from the drop down. And then I'll just hit refresh up here. And then you'll notice that now we have a review appeal stage. So what I can do is I can move this from our denial to our review appeal stage. And you'll notice that in our denial stage, we now have an additional field, which is called appealed. So it's set to yes because we, already said that we're trying to appeal this one. So we're going to go ahead and hit this blue next stage button to kind of move on to our next stage. And then it's going to ask us to kind of review this one again. So we're going to say that we have reviewed it and that we've completed our review on today and that I'm the user who reviewed it. And then if we hit this blue next stage button, it'll move us into the audit appeal stage. So again, I can look through my owner's documents, applications tab to kind of review the information for this specific hub certification. And then if I click on audit appeal, I can update this to yes. And I'm going to say we completed this today and it was completed by myself. And then we're going to hit this blue next stage button to move us on to the next stage. So this is where we'll go ahead and select whether or not we're going to approve this appeal or deny this appeal. So if we hit yes, that means we'll approve it. If we hit no, that means we'll deny it. And you'll notice that this final stage updates based on our selection here. So we're going to approve the appeal. So I'm going to click yes. And then in our appeal approved stage, I'm going to enter in a certification date and then hit this blue finish button. Once I do that, I can hit this refresh button from our command bar. And we'll see that our status reason updates to approved current term active. And then if I hit refresh one more time, we'll notice that now we have a hub certification approval letter in our timeline. And we can go ahead and click on it, download it, pull it up. And it's been updated to match the details of the vendor. So now we can go through appealing a NCSPE certification. So similar to our hub certification, I'm actually going to pull up the NCSPE certification that I denied earlier in this webinar. So first of all, I'm going to click on NCSPE certifications from the left-hand side on this navigation panel. Then I'm going to update our view to all NCSPE certifications. Paste the certification number into our search box. We'll click on our NCSPE to pull it up, and we'll notice that it's in, again, a denied status, and our denial letter is still sitting in our timeline. So from our command bar, we're going to go ahead and click this activate option, and then we're going to select appealed for our status, and then hit this blue activate button. Next, from our command bar, we'll go ahead and click process, and then click reactivate. And then we'll notice that we now have a review appeal stage. So we'll go ahead and move this one out of the denied stage by clicking on denied and then again, adds an appealed field that's set to yes. We'll leave it that way and just hit this next stage button. And then review complete, we'll put this to yes. And then completed date, we'll put as today. And then completed by, we'll select ourselves. And then hit this blue next stage button. Again, if we wanted to, we could go back through and look through the details of, our documents or applications, our owners tabs, general tabs, whatever we need to look at to make sure that we complete our audit. And then once we have completed the audit, we'll go ahead, click on Audit Appeal, update Audit Complete to yes, update the completed date to today's date, and then add the user who completed the audit, which we'll just go ahead and say is me. And if we hit this blue next stage button, we'll go ahead and set Appeal Approved yes. And we'll notice our final stage updates to Appeal Approved. However, if we had put no, then it updates to Appeal Denied. But we'll go ahead and approve this appeal. So then we'll set that as yes, and then click the blue next stage button. And then Appeal Approved. In this stage, we just got to enter in our start date. So we'll list that as today. Click our blue Finish button. Click Refresh. It's a little quick with the refresh this time, so we'll need to hit it again. And we'll notice that our status reason updates to approved, current term active. And then if we hit refresh one more time, we'll notice the PDF copy of our certification approval letter, which we can then download and kind of take a peek at. So we'll notice that the information updates based on the vendor's information. And again, these letters are automatically sent out to the vendors. So that was appealing Hub NCSPE certification. So next we'll go through revoking and reinstating Hub and NCSPE certifications. So to get started with revoking a Hub certification, again, from our left-hand side on this navigation panel, we'll click on Hub certifications. Then I'm going to go ahead and paste our Hub certification number into our search box, hit enter. And this is actually the example that we used to approve earlier in the webinar. And we'll notice up top here, we have a revoke option. So I'm going to go ahead and click revoke. And then it's going to ask us for a reason of why we're revoking this vendor's certification. So I'm going to say no longer eligible. And then click OK. And we'll notice that our status reason updates to revoked. And then if we hit refresh one time. Actually, one last time because we caught it mid-process because you'll notice that it's actually the Word file and not the PDF. And we can take a peek at the letter that the system generated. And then we'll notice that on the second page of this document that our reason for revoking the vendor is listed. Perfect. So now we'll actually go ahead and reinstate this vendor. So to reinstate the vendor or the Hub certification, we'll click on this activate option from our command bar up top. And then we'll update our status from pending to approved current term active. And then hit this blue activate button. And then actually it looks like our status reason already updated. So status reason is now approved current term active. Let's go ahead and hit our refresh button a couple of times. It's like one last time because we did catch it mid-process. And then we'll notice that we have a reinstatement letter listed in our timeline, which we can click on and go ahead and open up. And we'll notice that it's updated with the vendor's information. So now that we've revoked and reinstated a Hub certification, we can go through revoking, reinstating an NCSPE certification. So again, to start, I'm going to grab my NCSBE number and go ahead and paste it into our search box. Again, I'm using the NCSBE record that we actually approved earlier today. So SAS reasons currently in approved current term active. We can see the time on our timeline, the approval letter. And then if we click the revoke option from our command bar, this time we actually have 4 possible options to select from for choosing the reason why this vendor's NCSBE certification is being revoked. So we'll just select whichever one is applicable to this vendor and then hit this blue OK button. And we'll notice our status reason updates to revoked. And then if we hit our refresh option from our command bar, hit it just one more time, we can see our letter letting the vendor know that they've been revoked is in our timeline, which we can then open up. And we'll notice that our vendor's information is up at the top portion of this letter, and that the reason why their NCSBE records being revoked is listed right here. Let me actually zoom in. Pretty hard for you guys to see with the screen share. So yep, the reason why they're being revoked is listed here, and the vendor's information is listed up top here. So let's go ahead and reinstate this vendor. So from our command bar, we're going to click this activate option. And then for status, we're going to put it at approved current term active, and then hit this blue activate button. And we'll notice our status reason up in the upper right-hand corner has updated from revoked to approved current term active. And then if we hit this refresh button from our command bar, we'll notice that we now have a reinstatement letter listed in our timeline, which we can then open up. And then we can view that it's been updated with the vendor's information. And that covers revoking and reinstating Hub/NCSBE certifications. So for our last demo today, we're going to go over recertifying Hub and NCSBE certifications. So if we go back to our backend, we're going to click on the Hub certification option in our Hub management section. And then we're going to go ahead and start a search for our Hub certification record. And you'll notice that we have our top one right here is in recertification progress. So we're going to click on this one. And then again, up in the top right-hand corner, it says recertification progress. And if we look at our business process flow, we're starting at the application stage for this one. So we'll go ahead and review the details of this specific Hub certification. So if we look through, our general owner's documents, applications tabs, we can go ahead and look for whatever criteria we need to move this one out of its stage. Once we are assured of that, of those qualifications being met, we can go ahead and click on the application stage up here. And then in the application documents received, we can go ahead and set that to yes. Put our packet complete date as today's date. Hit this blue next stage button. Now we're in the under review stage, so if we needed to, we could go back and look at the information provided by the vendor. Once we've done so and it satisfies our needs to move it out of this stage, we can change application review complete from no to yes. Review completed date will be listed as today, and then review completed by is going to be us. And then we'll hit this blue next stage button to move into our audit stage. So again, we could go back and look through the information of this vendor in their application. And then once we're satisfied that we've completed our audit, we would go up here and click on audit, set our audit complete to yes, audit completed date to today's date, audit completed by to ourselves, and then hit this blue next stage button. And finally, we're in the approve application stage, so it's just going to ask us whether or not we want to approve it. So we'll go ahead and say yes. Once we do so, there's an approve stage added towards the end of our business process flow. And then we can hit this blue.
81% support raising minimum wage to buy a gun. 87% support background checks.
And if you don't mind muting when you don't have questions, that would be great. And then we'll go ahead and click this blue next stage button to move into our approved stage, which is our final stage for this one. And we'll go ahead and enter in the certification start date and click finish. So then we'll go ahead and hit refresh. Hit refresh one more time. So now we're approved current term active. And you'll notice we call it mid flow. But then we can click on our letter that the system generates, pull it up, take a look at it. It should update with our vendor's information. And next we can go through an NCSPE recertification. So we'll start by going to NCSP certifications, grabbing our record number that's been prepared for this recertification process. So we'll notice it's this top record. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And we'll notice that we're in the application stage of this recertification process. So we can, again, go ahead start by just reviewing our tabs and the information provided by the vendor when they went through, recertifying. And now that I'm satisfied that it meets the criteria to kind of move it out of this application stage, I can click on application. Set application documents received a yes. Packet complete date to this morning. And then hit blue next stage. Now I'm in the under review stage, so I'm going to say yes, I've already reviewed it, and the application review has been completed. The completed date is this morning, and I am the user that has completed it. And we'll hit blue next stage to move it on to the audit stage. So again, if we needed to, we could go back and look through our various tabs to get the information that the vendor provided. I'm going to say that we have completed our audit. So audit complete, I'll say is yes. Audit completed date, I'll list as today. And then audit completed by, I'll say I'm the user completing this one. Now that all these fields are filled out, we can go ahead and hit this blue next stage button. And now we're in the certification approved stage. So again, this is where we'll decide if we're actually approving or denying this certification, recertification. So I'm going to say we are. So then once I hit this blue next stage button, we're going to move on to our final approved stage where we'll list a certification start date and hit this blue finish button. Now that we've kind of moved through our business process flow, I'm going to go ahead and hit this refresh button. And we'll notice that our status reason updates to approved, current term active. And then if I hit refresh one more time, we'll notice that our letter that's automatically generated is sitting in our timeline. And we can pull it up and we'll notice that our vendor information has been updated to match the vendor listed on the record. And that kind of concludes today's demos. So we do have some kind of takeaways and some little bit of next steps for you guys. So kind of the takeaways as we saw it is that the new system is going to provide some great tracking transparency for you guys and the vendors. The proving and denying is pretty simple. And kind of like Lauren was saying during our earlier question section that, we are here to help you guys. If you have questions, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out to our help desk. They're, going to be prepared to help you guys through these processes. Did anybody have any questions that they wanted to kind of go through?
Yes, please. This is John.
Yeah.
I think I heard earlier on that the vendor training, there would be like a video to walk people through how to register. Did I hear that right? And how detailed would that be?
Correct. Today, I'm sorry, pardon me. If you go to our website, there is a video for how registration works, just walking through the steps of registration. And there will be that for the new system as well. It is not, as Lauren pointed out, it is not essential that all the vendors who are currently registered are going to be converted. The webinars are for those vendors who are registered already. And so it isn't until July 10th that anyone will need that information on how to start a new registration. So that is the timeline we're working off of for that.
Sure, I get that. And I think you said that there was going to be vendor training. Is that something that staff would be able to possibly attend to get a perspective on what the vendors would be experiencing on their end? We're trying to be as prepared as we can to support the vendors calling in, because, you know, they'll call us and say, what's going on? How do I do this? And, you know, we can try to send them to the help desk, but as much as we try not to hand people off, we try to be as prepared as we can to answer those questions. That's a customer service thing on our end. So we don't want to have to say, we don't know the answer to your question, go call these people. We realize that that's the help desk's job to help folks, but if we don't have to add to that workload and we can answer it ourselves, I think that would serve the customer well.
For sure. We have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We are going to be hosting 3 vendor webinars. It is the same content 3 times. That is in late June, early July. So they're training, I think is the 29th and 30th. And then there is a final one on July 6th. So we are happy to share those links to those are Teams live events. Happy to share those with your team, and you all can choose to attend one of the 3 of those, whichever one works with your schedule. But they'll also be recorded and posted for consumption at a later date as well.
Okay, thank you. Shauna.
Yes, hello. Thanks for allowing me to be a part of the training. But going back to the beginning, I'm one that do a lot of the searching. And so I didn't want to hold up anything because this was more important, the certification piece. But as far as the search, so I think John kind of was asking, so there's going to be 2 types of searches, one for public, and then when we say one for state, are you saying all the procurement end users within the state will need to use the one on the back end? I'm just trying to get an understanding of which way to direct individuals when they're trying to look for vendors, whether it's a prime that has a project and they're needing help with creating a list. And that was another thing. So will this also create like an Excel spreadsheet the way it did before? So I kind of asked 2 questions.
So as far as the first one, so this system, the users that have access to it will be, and they kind of may wear many hats, but it'll be folks who are like doing solicitations types of stuff. So it might not be every single e-procurement like back-end user, because it is technically somewhat separate from our e-procurement system, which is the one that they will generally use for like creating requisitions and purchase orders and whatnot. So there may be some users who don't actually have, some e-procurement users who don't have access to this side of things. So I guess it'll kind of depend on what their job functions are. If they're like posting solicitations and doing that kind of stuff, then they should have access to this. But if they're purely entering in requisitions, then they might not have access. And then for your second question, for this search feature, there is an export to Excel option up top here. So once you do have, created your search using like either your filters, or if you're, just using something general in this filter by keyword option, then you can hit this export to Excel option to export your search results.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So, Shauna, it might be, I don't, if you want to streamline your process, it might be easier just to use public vendor search, and then you know that regardless of their access to the back-end EVP, everyone has access to that public vendor search.
Okay.
And
All
you
right.
can export from the public vendor search as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? I know we're a couple of minutes over on time. Want to be respectful of that. All right. Well, as Jeff mentioned at the top of the hour, this session was recorded, so we will get it posted to a place where you guys can access it shortly. But certainly between now and the 10th, if you guys have questions, certainly this team is here for you. This is, the change management piece is our responsibility. So happy to help ease concerns or ease the anxiousness that comes along with the change that we're getting ready to experience.
Yeah, we greatly appreciate the collaboration, the partnership. So we will continue to have offline